Hey, I'm going to change this. It's going to piss me off. Hello. How are you all doing? I don't know how you guys do this every morning. I'm going to fall asleep at the microphone, I reckon. But I did have a gig last night, so I didn't really get to sleep much. Also, I'm kind of like a grandma. I don't know how to use this, but it's going to be oh, that's for you. Oh, I see. Hey. I'm Deena. Everyone can just call me Deena, but my artist name is Spectator Jones, and then my music name is Jaguar Jones. I'll get into it later on, but it's a real honour to be invited here and talk about symmetry. Though when they told me it was symmetry, I was just like, oh, what does that even mean? You know, it's really hard for me to really comprehend what symmetry meant to me, because everyone was just like, you're the most asymmetrical person I know. So I just thought about it and dwelled on it, and I don't know, got to a place where I guess I took it in a very non-dictionary definition, and so I'll get into it, but this is me, as you can see. But I already said all that stuff, so let's move on. So how I see symmetry is kind of like this, I guess how the other girls are putting it, like this kind of contrast, this juxtaposition between two different things. And for me, it was kind of like those two different things actually brought about this peace and balance. And so I kind of see it as without the asymmetry, there isn't symmetry. It's all the imperfections that bring about the perfections in our lives. We've got to go through all that tragedy to find the beauty, and then it's going through and dragging yourself through the chaos to then be able to find that structure within yourself that works for you. And that's kind of how I see symmetry at this point. I'm going to talk about mental health. It's something that I've really just come across in the last few years. Before then, I was a bit of a robot. I just functioned. And I just did my everyday without making connections with people because I was afraid. And probably afraid to go and tap into what I was hiding as well. And music and art has not been a thing I did growing up. It's been a thing that I started doing within the last few years. And that's a weird concept because there's this major insecurity about oh, I'm not good enough. I haven't been doing it since I was a child. And I think for a while, it brought me down, but I did it because I needed it, and I needed to express, and I needed to have an outlet. And I think I just want to say, it's really important, and I think all the other girls touched on this as well. It's to express, and art is expression, and art is truth. And it doesn't matter how long you've done it, if you're expressing, if you're putting out your truth, that's what matters. And I think after a while, I started embracing that, and now I pretty much just do art and music every day. To explain how I was brought up, the culture I was raised up in, and the societal structure, having an Asian background, as a young person was not fond of mental health. The idea about talking about mental health was just a bridge too far. It was kind of seen as a weakness and a vulnerability, and it was kind of this weird fundamental flaw or omen that brought about a family shame. I'm not sure if you guys felt the same way in your little societies, but for me it was really difficult to talk about mental health. If you were struggling, you had to pretty much struggle alone. My early life is kind of this crazy tornado of different continents, different homes. I had a whole bunch of different caretakers as well. So stability was not something that I was used to. I learned so much though, and from a lot of different situations and people, I grew up pretty quickly. But when it came to emotion, especially on the negative end of the spectrum, I learned pretty early on to close off, shut up and suppress. I kept that pain of my trauma from my psychological, physical, sexual and emotional abuse so locked away that I hid it from my own brain. I literally forced myself to forget it. And so many people that have grown up with me have always just been like, I don't know anything about you. And I'm like, oh, sure you do. But it's only really within the last few years that I've realised they actually didn't, because I was so unaware of the block I just put up to protect myself and to survive. So I built up a lot of defense mechanisms, and I'm sure each of us all have our individual unique defense mechanisms as well. And I had them to just survive and function. But it ironically morphed me into pretty much a kind of a dysfunctional human. I've suffered PTSD for over 20 years, and I didn't even realise that until I started looking into myself. And it's really difficult, and I find it hard talking about it, but you know, there's a lot of re-experiencing, there's a lot of flashbacks, panic attacks, self-medicating and dissociating. I just felt so trapped in my trauma that I thought nothing was ever going to get me out of it. But that was like really wrong. And as I make my progress through my own mental health and discover myself and give myself permission to open up and connect with people, I realize that it's really about talking to someone and letting people in and having conversations. So I finally had the courage to talk to someone. And once I opened that door, I just kept opening these doors, and suddenly there was like this magical fairy tale land that I didn't even know was in my brain. And so I just want to really push for people to have conversations and to lift that stigma off mental health. I think we all go through some form of challenge in our lives, and we all have to fight. But I really want to see the focus of conversation being shifted onto lifting the taboo of talking about mental health. I've obviously got baggage, and you've got baggage as well, but together through that support and openness and sharing, we can totally find our way through life's unavoidable adversities. I just want us to talk often and open. So for my journey and how I went about starting to make my kind of process to understand my PTSD and start breaking down those defense mechanisms was to start having a conversation with myself and to be able to express. And so for me, music was the beginning of my therapy before my conscious mind knew it. It facilitated a conversation with the most important person to me, and that was myself. I needed to be honest with myself, and to do that I was writing music and just kept writing and writing to the point that my subconscious mind was kind of like taking over and being like, this is how you feel today, Deena. And so I was then able to start kind of like, opening up that little door and letting it slowly pour out to the point that I was then able to have conversation with other people outside of myself. And that's when my art project started. So Spectator Jones is the artist that's part of Brisasia at the moment, and all the artworks are up at Fish Lane. But I basically started this project. I've never drawn a portrait before. I was not really like a visual artist and I started this project like 18 months ago. And it's my people project, and it's my passion project. That's why I have a moniker for it as well, because I feel like it's not a Deena Lynch thing. It's like, it's about everyone else that I interview as well, and it's the sharing of all those stories. So I felt off taking it under Deena Lynch, and so that's what Spectator Jones is. I interview every single person before I draw them in whatever way that they're comfortable with. So, if you want to have a beer at the pub, if you want to Skype, if you want to just stick with Instagram DMs, I just worked around what people were comfortable with. Yeah, and then from there, I make sure that they're safe the whole time and make sure they're okay with what I'm going to visually portray of them. But at the end, what I'm doing is portraying their individual battles that they've so generously shared with me. And then I use a lot of colours to offset the weight of that conversation and content and twist it into something visually pleasing. And I think that's allowed people this kind of fun about sharing. And for me, it's been just as therapeutic. Like, they've always said to me, like, oh, Deena, that was so awesome for me. That was an amazing process. I feel like a lot lighter. I feel like I have a trusted friend. And that all sounds really nice to me, but it's actually like so much more beneficial to me because when they give to me, I can't just take and I can't just take. And so slowly I've just edged forward in giving back to the point that I'm just like, oh yeah, I've been through that too, fuck, I know. And then like, you know, and feeling comfortable about sharing, while at the start I was probably a bit like, okay, and how do you feel about that, you know? But now it's literally just like a friendly conversation, and I am so grateful for everyone's patience and generosity in sharing with me, because I have changed so much as an adult within the last 18 months, and I just know that it's because I've interviewed and had conversations with so many people. I've had over 80 interviews already, and I've drawn over 60 portraits as well. Through their trust in me to open up and share, they've totally allowed me to do the same. It's through these conversations that I've been able to undo so much of my own challenges, and I just was putting it out here for you guys to want to do the same. Here's some of my artworks. There was no way this time last year I'd be standing here and talking about my PTSD. No one knew about it. I didn't even draw about it. That self-portrait I have there was the first time I even mentioned it. And now I'm just like standing in front of 180 people and saying it. And you know, like, I would never talk about depression and I'd never talk about anxiety. But there are things that I'm just kind of, I don't know why I cared so much before, you know, and I don't know why I felt so ashamed before, because now it's just kind of like, I know everyone goes through that. I know everyone goes through their little things. And so now I kind of say it like it's like, how are you? I'm anxious today. And it's fine. So I am now, I would never be that person that puts themselves forward to advocate for something, but now I'm really passionate about mental health awareness. Slowly but surely, music and art has healed so much of this buried chest of unresolved emotions. I still have a long way to go. My partner can vouch for that. But I've learned to be honest with myself and to let the world in. And I've broken away from the constructs that I was brought up with and learned the necessity about talking about mental health. People so patiently and beautifully have taught me that a conversation can make a world of difference. So I'm really anxious right now. I'm going to say that openly. And I'm just going to try something out with you guys. And I sat at home just being like, do I do this? And I don't know, I'm really scared. But I just want to give it a go, and it's going to require each and every one of you to participate with me. Throw yourself out there. This is a safe space. I'm going to read a set of questions out. And if you've ever experienced it for yourself, I want you to raise your hand up. And I know it's going to be a little bit awkward and uncomfortable, but it's that discomfort that pushes us to a place of honesty and a place of conversation and sharing. So I want to do it with everyone closing their eyes so that they're just feeling a little bit more safe in their own little black bubble. Black bubble? I don't know. So I want everyone to close their eyes and keep it closed. I have my eyes open, so if you're not closing your eyes, I'm going to catch you out. All right. So keep them closed, and keep them closed the whole way until I tell you. And if you decide to raise your hand up, keep holding it up until I've finished reading all the questions. Really try with me, because I'm putting myself out there, and I would love for you guys to do the same. All right, you guys ready? Close your eyes. Raise your hand up if you've ever suffered from self-deprecating thoughts. Raise your hand up if you've ever been tripped up so much with doubt. Raise your hand up if you've ever suffered from depression. Raise your hand up if you've ever suffered from anxiety, social anxiety, performance anxiety, obsessive-compulsive disorder, panic disorder, anxiety in general, or anxiety when talking to 180 people, I don't know. Raise your hand up if you've ever been treated poorly or suffered from any type of abuse, physical, emotional, sexual, psychological. Raise your hand up if you've ever been insecure about anything, in yourself, your self-worth, your self-confidence, in your practice, in your everyday creative pursuits, in your dreams and in your goals. Raise your hand up if you've ever gone through a trauma or grief or tragedy or heartbreak or pain or suffering. Raise your hand up if you've got quirks or vices or inclinations. Do you self-medicate? Do you drown yourself in unhealthy habits to make things a little easier? Raise your hand up if you've got a few demons in you or addictions and you've suffered from some sort of mental illness. Now, those of you who have put their hands up, keep them up. Feel confident in keeping them up. You'll soon realize that you're in like a really safe place and everyone is there with you, because open your eyes, have a look around, have a giggle, because everyone's pretty much put their hands up. Some, most. I feel really grateful that you guys did that with me, because that could have gone so terribly wrong. And if you were just putting your hands up to just help me out, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm so glad that went good. I think for me, the point of that was that everyone goes through shit, really. And everyone struggles and everyone suffers, and we feel so, I don't know, pressured to like keep it within ourselves, to not talk about it, to not be open about it. And for me, that just absolutely destroyed me as a human being, and I'm kind of done with that. And obviously, I struggle with it still, because talking about it, I'm kind of talking like a robot, because I'm finding it difficult. But I'm getting there, and I just want everyone else to do the same. We just don't need to be hiding at all. The irony to the taboo and structure of feeling like you're alone when struggling with your mental health is that every single person has a shade of trauma: anxiety, depression, illness, vices, inclinations, quirks, doubts, pain, suffering, and demons. We just need to start accepting that mental health is just as important as physical health, and just as the body will shut down here and there in sickness, the mind will too. Sometimes I have a bad day, and that's okay, because, you know, the brain is part of the body, and sometimes the body has a flu or a fever, and we think that's okay, but when we feel so, I don't know, well, for me, I do. We feel like we're not allowed to say, I'm feeling sick today, in the head, you know, and I think that's something we just need to start accepting, because, again, it's part of the body. Is this my last slide? Yeah, no. Okay. It's not a blanket solution, but to start the ball rolling, we need to create a safe space to encourage these conversations. If you guys have no one and you need a friend, I'm here. Otherwise, you know, I'm sure there are a group of people around you that are so willing to listen and give the love that you need. But if you don't feel like that, then, you know, there are people that you can find that are around. And I'm one. So I have time. I always have time. I just want each of you in the creative industries to keep creating, because when I talk about, I can yell. Well, I'll just finish off. I think conversations is through poetry, through art, through music, through film, through pottery, through woodworking, knitting, whatever you can think of. Oh. And that's no. I don't know what am I meant to talk? Oh, yeah. See ya. I'm done. I guess I'll finish off with my punchline too before the mic, this place kicked me out. Don't really remember what it's like, but it's just, we're all creatives and we've all got that power of expression. We've all got that power of being artistic and putting yourself out there and having an outlet. I just want each of you guys to have conversations with people, and don't be afraid of having conversations with people. Start the conversations with people to try and get it rolling. Put it into your, whatever you may do. This thing, put it in your pursuits, put it into your practice, and then most importantly, have the conversations with yourself, because for me it has just been the biggest eye-opening thing to just even be honest with myself, and I think we just need to do that. So I don't want to be preachy, but that's my thing. See ya.